Hey, Scuttlebutt listeners. This is the first in a series of bonus episodes we'll be releasing over the course of the next few weeks. These episodes are the full-length interviews we have been collecting for our 20th anniversary documentary of Fallujah 2, which will be coming out soon. So please stay tuned for that. All of the interviews were so good, we didn't want them to just sit in our archive, so we decided to launch them as individual episodes of our show. This episode is with Colonel Ben Venning. Ben was the AAV company commander during Fallujah 1, Operation Vigilant Resolve. His thoughts and perspectives from the spring of 2004 help provide context and set the stage for the accounts of the veterans of Fallujah 2 we interviewed. Here's the first of our bonus content for our 20th anniversary of Fallujah 2 series. Enjoy.
All right, I am here with Colonel Ben Venning. He is a veteran of the Battle of Vigilant Resolve. So, Ben, thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, really cool.
Yeah.
So, hey, just for the record, could you just state your name, rank, years of service, and what your billet was during Vigilant, or what your current billet is?
Okay. Yep. So I'm Ben Venning. I'm currently the CO for the Assault Amphibian School out of Camp Pendleton, California. This is my 31st year of service, and back then I was a captain. Had an Alpha Company 3rd Assault Amphibian Battalion. I'd been in command of the company for about better part of 4 months by the time we deployed.
And who were who you attached to at that point, or did you have your own battle space?
We were attached to RCT 1,
Okay.
then under the command of then Colonel John Tulin. Out there, and we did an entire pre-deployment workup period with them that lasted about better part of 4 months prior to our deployment.
Okay, and so 31 years of service. Where did you recruit out of, and sort of what was sort of the your path to the yellow footprints?
Yeah, so kind of a military family there that's more Army than Marine Corps. In fact, started off in the Army, did 3.5 years there. And then about midway through there, I decided to go to college at VMI. And during my VMI experience, ran into a Marine Lieutenant Colonel who said, you might want to think about the Marine Corps. And so at that point, started working at inter-service transfer, left the Army Guard at that point, and went to OCS.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Amtracker extraordinaire, rah. And then... but you've had some really unique billets.
I have. Yep. So following platoon commander time down at Camp Lejeune, which was my first assignment. From there, went back to the basic school as an SVC, and also back then they had a track vehicle platoon there. Did that for about a year as well. But all told, SVC and warfighting instructor at TVS. Followed that up by heading back to operating forces for company command, which took us through the Fallujah fight. Following that, getting back to Camp Pendleton, had the opportunity to serve as a congressional fellow.
Yeah,
went up to the Hill with OLA. Was there for about 3 years. I was the congressional fellow for Senator Richard Durbin of Illinois for a year, and then 2 other years on the back end there as a deputy Senate liaison. So a total of 3 years and some change up there at OLA. Left there, and then went down to I&I duty. Did that for 3 years, and down at Norfolk, Virginia, and following that, deployed over to Djibouti. Did that for about 8 months, and then OPSO at Second Tracks.
Okay.
Followed that by me deploying again to Afghanistan, back in the old IA days. Right, where you were gone more than you were around.
That's right.
So went out with that point back with 2MEF, and went out there for a year.
Is that Afghanistan?
Afghanistan.
Yeah.
So out there at Camp Leatherneck for a year for there, and came back from that, and I had the opportunity to go here at Quantico, serve with the Ground Combat Element Integrated Task Force, where we looked at integration of women into the
that's right.
into combat arms specialties, and did that for about a year and a half, and followed that with command at the Assault Amphibian School for the first time at 05 level command. And then off to that to school, I did a 3-year OSD tour at Pentagon, and then a year into Iraq again, working with Operation Inherent Resolve. Followed that by being the being the FMO, Fleet Marine Officer at 2nd Fleet, and then here on my current assignment.
Wow. Yeah. Man, what exciting 31 years, man.
Yeah.
So as we're talking Vigilant Resolve and throughout all of these experiences you've had, I think one of the things is we're looking at the lead up to us being in Fallujah. It all kind of started on 9/11. I know I remember very clearly, and I don't think I'll ever forget, as much as my memory fails me these days. I don't think I'll ever forget, Captain Craig Wiggers was my company commander. Mike Hunziker had just taken over my platoon.
Right.
So I was sort of transitioning over to the company XO position, and this Marine comes in and says, "Holy shit, someone flew a plane into the World Trade Center." And we had just finished PT,
Right.
trying to get down in time. Like, what a fucking idiot. I'm thinking it was like a private plane,
Right,
like a
right.
Cessna. What a fucking idiot.
Exactly.
And then we get down formation. Craig just says, "Everybody up to the common area." And then right when we get there, we see the plane hit the second building. I don't know. What were your experiences on 9/11?
Yeah, so funny you mentioned. So we're just in the Pentagon yesterday for a series of meetings up at PP&O, and so 3 years working there, back from 18 to 21. I worked in the area of the Pentagon that had taken the brunt of the crash. My boss at the time, a gentleman named Mr. Steve Daly, who was in the building at that time, gave an excellent account of what happened. He just happened not to be in that part of the building.
Jeez.
Personally, I remember very clearly. It was a Tuesday morning. It was a bright blue sky. I was an SPC at TBS, but at the time, I had not yet. I was slated to be an SPC, but not yet taken over yet. I still had the track vehicle platoon. I was at TBS. Fun job. It was great. Had a good time out there. But yeah, I just finished PTing. Did the standard TBS 3-mile course. Right. I lived right outside the gate, so I went home to shower and change, and that's when we saw the first building, the first plane at that building. We didn't. We just saw the footage. Thought the same thing. How weird. How's a Cessna run into the big ass building? How's that happen?
Yeah.
And so finished up, getting ready to go, and by that point, we saw, you could actually see the second aircraft go into the building, and I immediately knew, hey, okay, something's clearly wrong here. So I got back in the car, we shot back down to TBS, and by that point, we're all looking at the monitor, right there at Cox Hall, and which by that point the plane had hit the Pentagon, and so that's when TBS in general went to general quarters. I mean, literally Quantico went to general quarters, right? Everything kind of shut down. They were literally pulling up Marines to head up to drive up 95 to get up there as fast as they could. I clearly remember cell phones were useless. You couldn't make a phone call whatsoever.
Yep.
The networks were all clobbered, and folks are literally trying to get Humvees or any other type of vehicle to get support Marines up there to help up there at the Pentagon. Then that stopped, and then everything went to just making sure that Camp Barrett, but also all of Quantico was locked in.
Yeah.
Long story short, I don't remember getting home that night until around 04.
Jeez.
By the time we all left, and we were able to get back home, turn right around. We're back there about 8:30 or so. We're right back at TBS. And same thing. Everyone's trying to just kind of wrap their brain around what had just happened, and figure out what the next steps would be. So I just remember being the rest of that week was a blur in terms of what next steps would be and what we required. There was all kinds of talk about, do we need to send the Amtrak's up to help block 95? We had 7 vehicles at the point right there at TBS. So that was a plan we put together to actually move the vehicles up 95 and actually block access to certain areas around the Pentagon. Didn't execute that, but I remember that very clearly in terms of thinking about what we're going to do in that time frame. But also just trying to explain to Marines.
Yeah.
Again, very young platoon there. A lot of those Marines had just left boot camp and they were just at TBS. There's a very small debt of Marines to run the Amtrak's. But also just immediately going from that to be an SPC. And these are the lieutenants who had, they literally just started TBS right after 9/11. And that was just a very eye-opening experience for them.
Dude, I can't imagine. So for us, it was similar because everyone thought, hey, the fucking San Onofre.
Right. Yeah.
They launched LAR over from Polgus.
Right.
You obviously Third Strike so well. It's I-90 or it's I-5,
right,
and then a chain link fence.
Right.
So we had designated marksmen on top of all the buildings.
Right.
I remember there was a semi truck that just wasn't driving, like kind of took that off ramp.
Yep.
A little too fast and almost got his ass lit up.
Oh yeah.
And they were going to splash us to secure the waterway over to San Onofre. Everyone thought, was Los Angeles another target?
Right.
And kind of to your point, like with the student thing, fucking Hunziker had been with our company less than 30 days, I think.
Wow.
Because he graduated Amtrak school, I think in August, end of August.
Right. Wow. Yeah.
Dude, and so here I am, 24 years old, and I'm the person that 22-year-olds are looking up to. Like, what do we do?
Right, exactly.
I'm like,
exactly.
Let's start by not shitting our pants, because it also too, for context, like we're Clinton era.
Yeah.
Dude, there wasn't shit going on.
I mean, we were complete peace. Everything's peacetime. Everything's
you were hard as woodpecker lips if you got a MEU.
Right, exactly. You got a MEU. You came back, which I just come back from my MEU. The 30 was it the in March of 2000 we just came back, right? And
you're a trigger puller like Terry Possenbaum. Maybe you did Bosnia.
Exactly, right? Yeah, maybe. And get back and came out from the MEU. We think you're all badass, right?
Yeah.
And then had orders of TBS. And like, okay, great, go back to TBS. Well, it was kind of mixed. Like, man, TBS. I want to go back there again. But worked out because you get to still be an Amtrak. There's a whole platoon there. And I remember John Atkinson was there. He was an SBC, and Kurt Mullins had just had the platoon.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So seeing them again, right there when I got there, and
he's the guy who switched me over. He converted me.
Oh yeah.
I was a grunt, man. I was gonna be a grunt.
Yeah.
And then he showed that video of them trying to write the Amtrak. Shit, I could serve in the Marine Corps.
Right. And so I took the platoon from Pat McEwen. He had the platoon. And, so we're just going along, having a great time. We're doing Amtrak stuff at Quantico, and I remember we had Birchall.
Birch.
Bert, he was a staff sergeant on his way to Gunny at that point. No, he was a sergeant at that point on his way to staff sergeant. And Jannard Smith, he was there too. So those two guys kept me up at night. Trying to, hopefully not losing my hair there. But it was just a great time up until when that happened.
Yeah.
Right. When that happened, that's when it just changed for all of us. We're all just not sure, how we're gonna, proceed with that. And that company stood up of lieutenants. I left the platoon probably not long after that, after 9/11, because that company stood up in November. So about maybe not even 6 weeks after that, I was gone over to across the street.
Yeah.
And so they were all wide-eyed. They were completely. Some of them had just finished OCS, maybe a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Some were at home, right? Because they, that time,
the basket
time
leave or whatever they give you. Yeah.
Yeah. After OCS, so a lot of them were just like showing up, okay, what are we doing? And so it took a minute to get them on plane, but after that, they were anxiously wondering what the future would be, and lo and behold, some of those guys.
Man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So this is an interesting aspect. So you're an instructor teaching lieutenants that are going to war at this point.
Oh, yeah.
But at the same time, that you're going back to the fleet.
Right. Exactly.
So what was that like for you?
So I knew that I'd also gotten picked up to go to advanced armor at that point at Fort Knox. And so we knew that we're going to school. Some of us that all went at that time. And so we head off to school. And of course, we're getting those lieutenants out the door. We knew that some of those guys were going to operate battalions right away.
Yeah.
And I remember very clearly, Afghanistan had already occurred. They already, Joe Mattis had already gone out there and come back, right? And this is toward the end of the company. They're about to graduate in June of 01. and he gave kind of a quick, wrap up of what happened out there with Anaconda, and and so these lieutenants were ready to go. They were chomping at the bit to be a part of that, and so that was motivating in itself, right? Because they were ready to do it. They were ready to put forward.
I mean, that
all
had
the
a sense of realism to the training that you can't simulate.
It did.
My God.
Yeah. And then once you went into, so the company graduated, and then we started doing all the prep for, no kidding, Iraqi freedom, and you go into stop, move, stop, loss. I remember that day very clearly. And when that happened, this is getting toward the early 03 time frame, right? Late 02, right? So yeah, that's going on, and you could tell that's when I think it really got real for a lot of folks. That okay, you're in a stop, move, stop, loss status. No one's going anywhere, right?
Yeah.
So folks really got themselves figured out real quick. I still actually ordered to school to advanced armor, finish that up, and of course by the time we got to advanced armor, the thought was we're going to miss the war. We thought that we're all young, we're all captains. We're just as on fire as they were as lieutenants, right? We're like, well, this is the big one. You don't want to miss it, right? As if you think back, how does that logically work, right? You're like, no, man. If telling someone that's not in the military that they're like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, exactly.
What are you talking about, right? But all of us, we were like, no, this is it, man. This is the big one. This is the one you joined for, right?
Yeah.
And so, sure enough, it happens. Those y'all that were in the battalions, you guys did the march up, right?
Yep.
You guys were doing that while some of us were still sitting at school and all of 03. And so we're watching you guys on FBCB2 and everything else, watching the whole thing unfold, right? And I'm sitting at Fort Knox, and I remember Carlos Jackson, same time he was at EWS, and so he comes out there. We're both at Fort Knox, like watching this whole thing unfold, and in real time.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And so you guys get back. I finished up advanced armor. This is May or June of 03, and get orders out to. I was talking to then Major Russell about my future. Yeah. And
he was the XO of Third Track at the time. Yeah.
And who's still out in California, by the way. I see him.
Yeah, I see him. I saw him at the last, I think, the Ground Awards professional dinner. Yeah.
And so he's like, "Hey, you're coming out to be a company commander at Third Track." So like, okay, good to go. So we get out there, but I never forget getting to Third Tracks, and you guys had just gotten back.
You took over for Wilhelmsen, right?
I did.
Yeah.
I did, but I was the 3 Alpha for a little while before that, right? Working with Major Lay and those guys.
Yeah.
Right? And so and Carlos had H&S and all that stuff. But I remember very clearly driving back past the ramp and seeing P7s with RPG holes in the sides of them.
That's right, because they were rotating everything back.
Rotating back, yeah. And I think that's when it hit me that, wow, okay, here we go. And went into battalion. We're doing all the, I'm doing all the 3 Alpha things, right? And that's when then Lieutenant Colonel Buckles said, "Hey, you're taking Alpha Company," and from Justin Williamson, and took over that November. It was just I think before the ball. Took the company over. We started doing some workup type of things, and so we're thinking we had probably about. Yeah, maybe 4 months or so before we have to go back, and then we hear that Joe Madison's taking the division, elements of the division back. Again with RCT1 is kind of the GCE element of the base unit. So, and that's when we first tie in with 2-1 with then Lieutenant Colonel Olson, who just retired not long ago as Lieutenant General Olson. First time meeting him there, and so everything begins from there, right? And then one day we were told, no, you're leaving next week. And so we're thinking we're taking vehicles off the ramp, right? I think you've been in that time frame as well, but there were a lot of Justin was there.
Yeah, no, they because of stop loss.
Oh, okay.
I was supposed to go on an RS.
Okay.
Thing. And so I did a drug deal with the Monitor to stay with the battalion, but then I had to take whatever hot fill was available once they ended hostilities.
Okay.
And so I went back actually with like all the EASers and all those folks that were supposed to actually have like not been Marines anymore.
Right,
they're like waiting on their DD-214.
Right.
But they went to war. So I went back with all those guys. And so I had like 3 days to report to Atlanta.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Upon landing.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was like, what's available? Yeah, I'll take it, because I have no place to live. And I'm living out of my fucking RAV4, So, yeah, I missed all of that stuff,
Yeah. So by that point, it was we're doing this whole thing where we're fixing the vehicles on the ramp because we think we're taking those. They're like, no, you're taking the black bottom vehicles.
Yeah.
No, they'll just meet you over there. And so so that's what ended up happening. We ended up getting the company.
Yeah, I mean, they're pulling shit out of the E-plots and stuff, right?
Yeah, it was nuts,
Yeah.
right? And so we finally get it all figured out. Remember, Mash Guns, Larry Whitney was there. We're all kind of getting it all sorted out. And so long story short, we finally get ourselves together. And by February of 2004, the buses and trucks are there and we're loading up.
So you guys didn't really have a workup?
Not really. We went to March Air Force Base. We did some things. Did a lot of what do you used to call it, SASO operations, right?
Yeah.
We did that for about a month or two up at March Air Force Base. Came back, did a little bit of leave. Came back from leave, and that was it. It was ready to go.
Damn.
And,
So was there any talk of mech infantry integration stuff, or were you guys thinking you're going to do like the conventional FLOT, big blue arrow?
It was really more. So all your stability operations, which is what we thought we were going to be doing, right, was really focused on again, operate in and amongst civilian populace, being stability operations. Not so much on the combat operations side, but be able to do those things if you had to. But that was really the focus, right?
Yeah.
In fact, I remember very clearly decisions, or at least discussions being made between General Mattis at the time, General Mattis, and then Colonel Dunford about, okay, what are we taking with us? Do we need to take artillery? Do we need to take all these different elements? And so, so myself with the tank company commander and other folks, we knew that we were going, but had no real clarity on what exactly we'd be doing. And also with Lieutenant Colonel Renforth, but again, the focus was on stability, not necessarily on combat operations. It wasn't until we deployed and we finally got into Camp Fallujah, and you remember the catalyst for all of this being the death of the contractors.
Yep, on the bridge,
right on the bridge. That was, for all of us, I think when the switch came on, it said, no, this will be combat operations.
How long had you been in country when that happened?
We had been there maybe 3 weeks.
Get the fuck.
Yeah. Maybe at that point, by the time we had done the drive up, which was largely administrative, just a matter of getting the comms figured out. But
and you guys landed in TQ? Is that where you at?
No, yeah. So no, we everyone ended up in Kuwait, right?
Yeah.
And we.
You drove up from Kuwait.
Drove up from Kuwait.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So we all got to Kuwait. We all did our RSO&I Kuwait. Right, got everything all sorted out. We got the company figured out. The offload of the Amtraks off Black Bottoms right there in Kuwait. All the vehicles we needed uploaded on low boys.
Yeah.
And again, all the Humvees that we had. So I remember the company set just being enormous, right? 220 Marines, 56 Amtraks, right, that were coming up with us. Something like close to 40 different type variants of Humvees and up armored type vehicles.
Yeah.
Right? So it was us and we took the tank platoon, a tank platoon with us. And the tank company took all their rolling stock with them as well, right? So
did they give you guys any of these 7 tons and stuff like
we
that?
Did. All your 7 tons, LVSRs, all that stuff, right? So all that rolling stock along with the low boys for the vehicles, which went up in an advanced party.
Yeah.
Just a lot going on there to get.
Who did you guys rip with?
So we ripped with the Army. Yeah. So
yeah.
Elements of the 82nd were at Fallujah. They were leaving the 82nd. I remember very clearly because some of my classmates from VMI were part of that battalion that was there at Fallujah.
Okay.
And so as they were ripping out, we ripped into Camp Mech, as we're calling it back then.
What did they tell you?
So very little, because they were largely focused on anything that which was happening in and around the camp. Right, they did some patrols in and out of Fallujah area, but not a lot at that point. Because a lot of those guys were on the really long tours, right? They were 13-month tours, right? Even then.
Because some of those guys were hangovers from the invasion, right?
Exactly. Right. And so they, at this point, but I think because of the length of their tours, they had more or less go on the ground. And so what was left for the RIP was more focused on, understanding, the environment around the Camp Mech. And that was it. There wasn't a whole lot of details about what was happening in Fallujah proper, because by this point, the thinking was you're doing stability. You're not to be running around inside the city. You're doing, again, we're there to make sure that the army can take over, the Iraqi army. They can take over and kind of do what they need to do to keep everything, or the law enforcement, those kind of things. Those elements would be able to do what they had to do, but no. As soon as everything happened with the bridge, anything that we even got from them was irrelevant because the environment had changed so dramatically in terms of what was being asked of us at that point. Again, just from the perspective of captain, all that was, couldn't see that. It wasn't until I got back and started reading things like, Bing West, the March Up, and and Tom Rick's fiasco. You start looking at those things. That's what kind of like really kind of
what
gave
was it? Imperial or Life in the Imperial City. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So you start reading those different. That's what kind of gave the rest of the story on the other end. That you could put your experience with that and kind of go, wow, okay, that's what happened here. So that's what. But from a perspective of 28, 29-year-old captain at that point, you're like, okay, this is weird.
Yeah.
what are we doing?
And all of this stuff has been happening this. You just know.
Right. Dramatically fast. And I remember when the decisions that are being made after the contractors had gotten killed, I do remember very clearly Joe Mattis's reluctance or not wanting to do operations in the city just based off of that, and not wanting to make an immediate reaction based off of what had happened in the city. Instead, wanting to do something that was much more thought out, methodical, an approach where we would choose the time and choosing, right, in terms of how we wanted to wanted to fight instead of being driven into it.
Right.
But that was overcome by other decisions at higher echelons, right? And so once that happened, we were in it.
So let's talk that piece. So you have the contractors that are murdered on the bridge. You guys have to send folks to get them.
Right.
So is that the beginning of the operation, or is that just sort of in response to it because you didn't want them further mutilated?
I think it was in response.
Okay.
If I could just remember how the Cubs were breaking out at that point, and the updates from the folks being in the cheap seats and the staff meetings that are happening at this point, because everyone's in the room at this point, which is again an experience I'll never forget. Where as a captain, you're there. You have the regional commander there. You have the two. You have all different enablers and everyone else around this large black table.
Yep.
In this really huge room, and all the hangers on are in the back, like along the walls. Right?
Yeah,
we're clinging to every word, like what's happening, right? And
you get the folding chair.
Oh yeah, folding chair in the back. That's right. The hard folding chair. But we're all there, and you're hearing this whole thing being discussed and figured out about, okay, so what are we doing with this? How are we going to do that? And what I remember clearly is hearing then a lieutenant colonel ran forth, laying out the plan of what's going to happen, so the regiment had to go do that. They went and did that and recovered those four contractors, which quickly turned to you see the beginnings of discussions about what next. And just from again, I had to couple it with the reading, couple it with my own experiences, seeing that that was the time these decisions were being made in terms of what will be the response and how will this force respond to that? What and then having what capability do you have, right, to really to do what's being asked of you? Do you have enough combat power to do what's being asked of you, right? Again, just you could see that now it makes sense to me. Just the weight of the decisions, and also puts me in even more awe of the weight on a colonel's shoulders. Than Colonel Toolin in terms of, okay, what has to happen here, and the capability to bring all that to bear, right? Or even Blue Diamond at that point, right? With Joe Mattis in terms of from Ramadi having to figure out, okay, how all this is going to come together.
And that's where the Blue Diamond is set up, is in Ramadi. So they're not even. I mean, they're probably about 50 miles from Fallujah.
Right. But you have the MEF, which is right on top of the regiment. Again, one MEF was situated at Fallujah, right?
Yeah.
So that staff is right on top of them. So you have that dynamic too, right? In terms of how everything's playing out. So I can only imagine just being a staff officer at that point, what had to be just a crushing amount of information management.
I'd imagine. And you don't have a PowerPoint, right?
No, right.
So you can't really speak their language.
Right. I mean, they had all the briefing stuff was there, but still, I'm sure you still had and not to mention the fact of what was in Baghdad, right? So you have Baghdad, you have your high headquarters on top of you right there, as well as 50 miles away.
Yeah. And I mean, you guys have been in country 3 weeks at this point.
Yeah, 3 weeks, right? We had some folks that are there a little bit longer with all your advanced stuff, right? But yeah, we're at the very beginning of the deployment. And so that had to be just I know from my perspective what we saw, but it's also what they saw at their end. It's had to be incredible.
Was the murdering of the contractors something that you guys, like, as you're going to your bubs, as you're getting briefs from the Deuce, are they giving you the enemy composition, disposition, so where you weren't surprised? Or was this one of the things, oh shit, there's hardcore guys in there?
I think it was unfolding that there are hardcore dudes there, right? It was we're starting to see that,
like, these aren't harassment gang members. This is like a real
and you're not just doing stability ops.
You're
not going out there handing out soccer balls.
You're right.
That
backpacks.
That whole thing is different. We're not doing that at all. No, this is going to be a combat operation, and this is going to be very deliberate. You will again if we're going to take the city, we're going to take the city. And I think the quote was from Joe Mattis: "If you're going to take Vienna, take fucking Vienna." Right?
Yeah.
And that's what was being communicated throughout the force, right? Even down to us as junior captains out there as company commanders, about what had to happen. And so I remember very clearly being a tank company commander, just kind of understanding, at least in general terms, what had to happen. You got an Amtrak company that had to support, 3 different battalions, which was a non-conventional deployment of a company, right? You end up with sections of vehicles doing things in support of companies, and putting an Amtrak in an urban environment, the first time doing anything like that since Way, right?
Yeah.
So I think that was what really jumped out to me. That just at that point, even a graduate, we have to do this.
And so, what did you understand? One, and I guess for the sake of context, when an Amtrak company deploys, you're in support of a battalion.
Right.
And your platoons support the battalion's companies.
Right.
So when you say that your company was now supporting the entire regiment, we're not talking the 1 to 3 model anymore. We're talking 1 to 9.
Right. Easily.
And so when you say it's unconventional, generally Amtrak's employ, even at the smallest level at the section, but that's usually nested within an overall platoon plan as it's supporting the company. So you got 12 VICs.
Right.
Very rarely at this point would we have thought about employing 3 to 4 vehicles as an independent sort of
doing anything,
exactly. Other than being in support of the platoon.
Yes. Yeah.
So how then, and then also for context, the AAV company commander, although you have your own vehicle, you're now essentially, and you said it before we started recording, is you're letting lieutenants do lieutenant stuff. Right. You're kind of special staff now to the battalion commander.
Right.
With this whole new paradigm that you're looking at, can you talk to us about the role of your company and then your specific role as the company commander?
Right. So backing up a little bit, the platoon commanders that I had, one of which, Alexander Weatherby, who had done the march up with the battalion the year before.
Very close friends with Mike Hunziker.
Yep, exactly. And we also had James Smithson, who had gone up before as well. And so those are my 2 senior lieutenants. The remaining platoon commanders were all out of school, weeks out of school by the time we picked them up to deploy. So they joined the company literally, we'll say, a month before we deployed. And so they were all brand new, figuring it out. And so as a result, with Smithson's experience and Weatherby's experience as well, I gave Weatherby's platoon. We found out that we were going to lose them right away. They were going to go out toward RCT 7's AO, which was out toward Al-Qaim.
Okay.
And so they detached. And so I knew with Weatherby having the experience of the last deployment as well as the platoon sergeant, they went up there and did that. So I had 2 platoons left with the H&S and of course all the supporting structure with that. Those 2 platoons then are now spread out supporting as Fallujah kicked off.
I'm sorry, real quick, just for context, Al-Qaim is as close to Fallujah as Boise, Idaho is to fucking Miami.
It's
It's not that drastic, but I mean, it's pretty. We're talking hundreds of miles.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a definitely worth a helicopter ride.
Yeah.
In terms of getting out there.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to load those up onto trucks, you're talking a day's worth of movement.
Easily.
Yeah.
Easily. Right. And so they were out of the area. When Neptune went away, they went away. They were gone. Right.
So it's not like you could just get them on the radio.
Exactly. Yeah. So now that increases the pressure on the company now. So you're down that whole let's say a third of your company's strength is now gone. Now that remaining 2/3 is supporting 3 battalions, right, or more. And so that left us with smaller platoons, sections doing different things to support different companies, and the company headquarters, which we made a decision to move closer to the city, right, to be able to provide that BDAR or battle damage assessment and recovery team out there, and also just having your combat replacements on hand, medevac capability, and those kind of things. And so we reorganized the company headquarters to be able to do those things to keep the pressure off the platoons. And so as everything kicked off and those platoons were in support of those battalions, I just saw the role of moving that company headquarters off the FOB and getting them closer to the point of action where they could be useful, which was in this case the Cloverleaf, which is right there at Route Mobile on the what would be the eastern edge, I believe, of the city there. So that's what I saw the role as company commander, to be responsive, to be there, and also to keep capability up, right? So his vehicles went down, get them pulled back in with the BR, be able to apply whatever we could to get them fixed and get another vehicle out there. And that's what we did for most of that time during the initial Fallujah fight. So platoons are busy. There's a lot going on. And then, of course, on April 13th, we took our first KIA, which was Corporal Kevin Combe. And that was a sobering event for the company, right? That's when it, of course, the infantry battalions had already taken a few casualties, particularly 2-1 at this point. But I think when that happened, you can tell the entire company realized that, okay, this is combat. And so, again, they performed famously. They again got after their task. They made sure that they continue to get after it. But I think at that point you can tell the focus changed completely. In terms of what was expected, and getting after it, and supporting those rifle companies.
So one of the issues then is it doesn't sound like you guys had a ton of rehearsal time.
Right. There was not a lot, but what we did was concentrated, right?
Okay.
Even on the FOB, I do remember now as we talk about it, it comes back to me how concentrated that time was. Even during every minute you had on the FOB, we still built in training plans. We still built in opportunities to refine what we did back in the States. If nothing but getting around a map and talking about it. And that was all staff and senior leadership, right? They got figured out, hey, look, we need to rehearse this. We need to make sure we understand what the hell we're doing. We need to, everything down to if you're in a Humvee on a patrol or if you're in an Amtrak on a patrol, what are we doing to make sure we can get the vehicles back remain in the fight, but also support infantry that are in the fight. Protect the vehicles, make sure that you're not putting the vehicle in a place where it will be destroyed, especially after we lost Corporal Combe, which was a vehicle that was destroyed in the city that had to be drugged back out of the city by a tank. So once that happened, we started talking through employment principles, right? Go back to basics, figure out again how we're doing support. What are we supporting? What are we advising folks in terms of what you're doing?
And you're doing all this while Marines are engaged in combat.
Right. Yeah, all that's happening simultaneously. Yeah. And,
Did you have Alcantara? Was he one of yours?
Yes, he is. Yes, I saw him not a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alcantara's good people, man.
And I think he was also injured in that first.
He took a RPG to the leg.
Right. In that first one, and also with that vehicle that Corporal Combe was on, Lance Corporal Puckett, Matt Puckett, who was the driver for that vehicle. It's a really it's a citation captures it well in terms of once the vehicle started taking fire, he put the vehicle through several buildings, right, to try to protect the grunt servants out of it. the rifle platoon commander lost a leg from an RPG that actually got into the vehicle. And of course, I think the vehicle took a series of almost 6 to 7 different RPG hits. He put the vehicle behind a wall. They got everyone off. The grunts, most of them got off, and then he ran back under fire back to the vehicle to help get the lieutenant off. Him and another Marine. They got the lieutenant off. They get the lieutenant to safety. He runs back to the vehicle again, right, this time under fire, to get Corporal Combe. And he's on top of the vehicle, which is cooking off at this point for all the ammo, and he's still trying to get Corporal Combe out, which he was unsuccessful in doing. But he had to be literally pulled away from the vehicle to get back in his effort to try to save his crew chief. So to get back, and just quick sidebar on Let's Go Puckett. My first sergeant Calvin Smith, we make a decision. Hey, wait a minute. All right, you are not going anywhere else. We need to just keep you in the headquarters, and we did for the better part of the rest of that deployment, which pissed him off dramatically.
Yeah,
right?
I bet.
He wanted to be back out there with the Marines. So we slowly started letting him go back out, and long story short, at the end, September, we allow him to go back out again. And so I said, well, you're driving with me. You'll be the driver of this armored Humvee. And unfortunately, we lost Matt Puckett on September 13th of 04. We're in a fob. We're doing Count of Mortar, Count of Rocket down in Zaydan. Again, not too far from Fallujah proper, but closer to what was the place that had all the trouble that time, where the prison was?
Oh, Abu Ghraib?
Abu Ghraib, yeah, not too far from Abu Ghraib. So anyway, and yeah, unfortunately, we lost Lance Corporal Puckett there on that day, along with a few others in that same fight. But yeah, he was just a fireball of a Marine, and so his mom, Ms. Sue Wood, we still keep in touch with her really closely.
Oh, that's good.
And she was with us in April at the reunion, and yeah, so she's just a super nice lady, and so she's stays close connected with us, and
that's awesome.
Yeah.
What would you say sort of was the tempo? I guess how long did Vigilant Resolve go? I know obviously there's varying ebbs and flows, but without Wikipediaing it, what was sort of the dates of Vigilant Resolve?
What I can remember, I believe it lasted for a better part of about 5 weeks.
Okay.
I might be off on that. I have to check it again, but from what I can remember in terms of the prep, up and through the actual execution until the time at which we're ordered to stop, I believe had to be somewhere close to we'll say 4 weeks.
4 weeks.
Yeah, thereabouts.
And then would you say it was, and I hate to use these kind of terms, but like heavy fighting the whole time, or were there periods of relative quiet, or was it like 6 days of gnarliness and then?
Yeah, I think it was more chaotic toward the beginning.
Okay.
I think just the opening days of it. Once all the formations got into position, again only recognize this after it was over and reading, but just from my perspective, the opening days were the worst in terms of from what I could tell from what the infantry companies, infantry battalions were going through, and also what we were going through in terms of trying to support all that. Mm-hmm. And again, remember what the tank company was doing as well, and all the supporting elements, fires from the artillery battery, which was right around the corner from us, as far as where we were situated. So the opening days being the busiest, about a week and a half of just all in, all out combat operations. And then I remember it beginning to taper off to more of a kind of an ebb and flow of, what Seal was saying, it's a combat, it's like, it's long periods of boredom. Spiked by moments of sheer terror, right? Yeah. That's you just remember that aspect of whether it be indirect fire or whatever else would happen during the course of a day, and then of course at night things usually spiking pretty heavily at night. Support from aviation assets and everything, those kind of things. That being the constant drone of something overhead. I remember that pretty clearly. So I would say it was heavy at front, ebbing and flowing toward the middle, and then finally toward the end, kind of like a large kind of blast at the end there, and then kind of like it tapered off again. And by that point, we're departing the city.
And so you had mentioned that you were told to stop. Well, could you talk that piece?
Yeah. So I would guess, I'll say from my perspective, as we understand it, and from the Bubs and those kind of things, it began to be clear that there were conditions that were changing at higher echelons that were more or less directing that combat operations as they were occurring in that form had to end because of different conditions relative to the Iraqi government, relative to outcomes that senior leaders wanted to see out of Baghdad, relative to what we're actually doing. So I think all that mixed together led to a decision to say stop.
Do you think that was, and maybe it's yes to all, but was it because the insurgency was controlling the narrative and painting it in a bad way? Was it because it was happening in a bad way? Was it because media back here was portraying it in a bad way? Again, was it all of the above?
Again, just from a young captain perspective, I would say probably a mix of all those things.
Yeah.
But then from the reading subsequently afterwards, it would appear that there were outcomes that were just not desirable based off of what the political leaders were hearing and seeing, requests of the government of Iraq, right, in terms of what was happening on the ground. I do remember reading about a very specific request that those operations be stopped to allow what was then the Fallujah Brigade, right, allow them to take over operations, and there were also religious aspects and those kind of things as well, right? But again, there were just a host of things that were coming together that I guess made it no longer viable, right, to continue operations, despite the fact that the force was already 2/3 of the way through the city.
Yeah.
And more than likely were less than, I'd say, maybe 48 to 72 hours from controlling the entirety of the city. And so that had to be again, with the benefit of time and experience now, you can look back and say, man, that had to be just a terrible set of options, like for division level leaders, again, regiment level leaders, everyone else in between, but then all the way back down to our youngest Marines, trying to articulate to them, after all that had been
4 weeks,
right, and all that had been done up to that point,
to
now have to say we're stopping, and then having to pull all that back into at least reduce operations to a level that was not going to get you to be able to adequately control the entire city. And what stands out to me the most is General Conway we had this huge town hall, and we're all back on camp, at least most of the force is now back. There's still some things that are happening, patrolling, those kind of things. But this town hall occurs, and I remember a young Marine, I think it was a sergeant, who asked a very direct question. He was like, why did we stop? And General Conway gave, as best he could of an answer that would try to capture the various levels that were going on. I'm sure that he's looking at from the national level and again, as far as strategic and operational reasons, and trying to make that make tactical sense. But I just remember walking away as a captain saying, that's probably not.
Not a great answer.
Or just none of. There's no answer that'll be satisfying at this point as to why why we would stop at this point, even for a young sergeant who's just asking the question. So I can imagine that sergeant is probably several times over, and who may even today may still have questions about why that happened.
And so you had mentioned you guys had continued combat operations, though, just not in Fallujah. So
not in Fallujah.
Were you guys? And I'm trying to think of this in context of Fallujah too. So Vigilant Resolve ends. We know that obviously we know now Phantom Fury is just a few months away.
Right.
Were the operations you guys were conducting shaping, or were you just trying to contain whatever was left over in the city proper? Or what was sort of the plan there?
I think it was a lot of that. There was a lot of, again, I go back to this Fallujah Brigade construct, which was not...
These are Iraqis, right?
Iraqis, right, which did not work out as planned. They were not a capable force, right? They had no real capability. They were doing some things, but not all the things that you needed.
Did they have a bunch of them turn?
I believe, if not turn, just not show up, right? they come to get paid, but not really do anything.
Yeah.
And so I think it was a mixture of all those things, right? In terms of what was actually occurring. There was still combat operations happening in and around the city, right? As if some type of control, perhaps to enable, right, what was left in the city to continue to do operations, right? Allow the Fallujah Brigade to exert some type of control, right? Mm-hmm. But I think the biggest part that at least from my angle, what it appears to be now, with the benefit of time, it appeared that the regiment was in a position to try to just impose cost on everything in and around the city, right, to prevent more folks from flowing into the city, to make it harder to control it.
Yeah.
And that's what it appeared was happening there, just in and around. And again, of course, what I forgot to mention was that 7th Marines had come off of what was happening out in the West and had come down to Fallujah at this point. And they were also, at least elements of it, were helping, and they were also adding to that combat power. You had, an Army, I believe a brigade had come up, and they had done some things from the South, right? So it was being widely noticed, at least, that the Fallujah problem wasn't going away, based on us just stopping, and also based on the fact that foreign fighters were continuing to flow into the city.
Yeah.
So the effort, I do remember clearly the effort being focused on controlling, along the MSRs, controlling in and around, what was happening in the city, using different elements, ODAs, those kind of things to kind of, exert control and impose cost on those guys. So very dynamic, lots going on. But for Amtrak Company Commander, there became a point where we were directed to bring the vehicles off the roads, right? Because again, the Amtrak going on the road presents a different, it communicates something different than a couple Humvees, right?
Yeah.
And so I remember very clearly where we made a decision to pull those vehicles off the road, and we more or less went to Humvees, up armored Humvees. We still had tracks doing things. We had not yet reached a point where Amtraks were off the roads completely, but we reduced that signature quite a bit. Because we knew that if it came to an IED or something like that, that the vehicle could definitely withstand it much more than a Humvee could.
Right.
In fact, we saw a couple of those instances. But we're doing a mixture of patrols as the rifle companies were all doing other things. The three would come to myself and the tank company commander and say, "Hey, you will do these things. We need you to do. We need you to go out and do this route security patrol. We need you to go out and take this battle space.
Yeah.
How many folks do you have available? Okay, well, you're going to go off and do this." And so that became an eye-opener to all of us, because you had some folks, you can imagine, Amtrak company, right? Some folks are like, "Sir, what are we doing? Why are we, that's not our job.
Yeah.
We're here to be Amtrackers." And, and having a conversation, say, "Look, I hear you, brother, but that dude with the eagle thing on his collar said,
Yeah.
we're going to do this thing," right? So yeah, we would go out and do it. And on Humvees or on our 7 tons, and so the tank company and us found ourselves doing a lot of route security patrols, running around, and so that was a significant change for a lot of the folks in the company. They were not, and I remember very clearly having to do patrols like dismounted patrols.
Yeah.
We had platoons that were doing that and walking around and through. Back to I do a lot of very fascinated with all things Vietnam, and it's funny how a lot of things kind of come back in circles, and it reminds me of the Marines that were the Amtrak companies that were part of the 1st Track Vehicle Battalion and around Cuivette, not too far from DMZ, and they were called AmGrunts.
AmGrunts, yeah.
And that's what they were doing. They were mounted on P5s, and they were told to put the P5s away, or at least reconfigure the company so that they could be their own dismounts, and they were grunts, and they were doing patrols, doing all the other things, right? So yeah, it was the same type of thing.
And that was the paradigm that continued on for the next 5 years.
Right, exactly. So companies that came in after
because I came in 07,
right,
up north near Haditha.
Yep.
And I only because I argued with General Clarity,
right,
but Colonel Clarity at the time, I argued properly for the use, but
Okay.
he wasn't going to give me any.
Oh, wow.
We were going to show up as just a straight leg infantry company.
Wow.
And I've argued enough to get 4.
Right.
because I had really good staff NCOs, we pulled 6 off the lot.
Right. Yeah.
Because you got to have redundancy,
exactly,
right?
Exactly. Yeah.
You got to have redundancy.
Yeah, for sure.
So I was able to use 6, and I was the first in I think 2 years in Anbar Province to use AAVs.
Yeah.
But everybody else was going up there straight like infantry, man.
Right. And so we had all our we had about a part of, I want to say, close to 30 Humvees by the time we were able to get off of come off the tracks as much, which we, like I said, we still used them, but I remember the platoons had task organized in and around those Humvees because and also the maintenance the burn rate on Humvees was just astronomical.
Yeah.
A set of tires lasted you a week.
Well, because they were so up armored, the chassis
Heavy.
wasn't. The transmission wasn't really able to handle the suspension.
Yeah, so just a lot of work. Russ Pankovich was, I think he lost all of his hair at that point.
So he had a full.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
He looked like Leonard Skinner before that deployment.
Exactly. Yeah. So by the time that all got wrapped up, it was just just a long ride. But yeah, it was. By the time we were doing those patrols, if you think in terms of, to your earlier question about shaping operations, that's exactly, I think, what it was. If you look at everything that happened between May and the entire summer of 2004, right, as you moved in toward July, August timeframe, and definitely as you got into September, it was all shaping operations. We knew Phantom Fury was happening. We knew
you did, okay.
Yeah, we knew that there would be a subsequent operation at some point, right, where you would have to go back into the city. Because by this point, by the summer, it was clear that the Fallujah Brigade was not panning out. Nothing that, no matter how much capability you gave it, no matter how much, no matter how much shaping you did in and around the city.
Yeah, combat ops, indirect support too. Like I'm sure they had air.
Oh yeah, you had all that.
FOs, FAs,
right.
Their facts up in there, right?
But because the Fallujah Brigade was so ineffective, you still had the flow of foreign fighters inside the city, right, which is just making the problem worse.
Right.
And so you could tell that over time, a decision had to be made in terms of just when it was going to happen, right? And so I remember very clearly when then Colonel Tulin was approaching his last days in command out there at the regiment, and he was taken off. And on the day that he departed, I believe it was I can't remember, his name's escaping right now. The colonel that replaced him retired as a lieutenant colonel later.
Tonsky?
Lawrence Nicholson.
Oh, Nicholson. Yeah.
Right. So he took over as the RCT-1 CO. I can't remember what day it was, but it had to be around sometime in late or early mid-August, I believe, was when they changed over. Could be wrong. But the day of the change of command, the day that Colonel Tulin leaves, and that's all over. The new commander is in his office. The regiment XO at the time is then Lieutenant Colonel Eric Smith, his commandant, and I think it was around maybe 1,500 or so that day. The sergeant major of the regiment, they're all in there. We, the tank company and the Amtrak company, were in our cans, or at least a lot of us were out in front of the cans. I don't know why. I think we're just talking bullshit and whatever. And you heard this rocket. The rocket sailed low over the camp. Just kind of, you knew it was a rocket, but you didn't know where it was going.
Mm-hmm.
And it went right through the window of the CO's office, and detonated in that office. Just a complete random shot that happened to hit a critical target, and it severely injured then Colonel Nicholson. Unfortunately, killed the communication comm officer, then Major Kevin Shea, who I had just been talking to. So back up. That had to be September when this happened. So,
okay.
So that was September because we had come out of the field. That would have been around September 13, 14 time frame. So that's when this had to happen that day, when as General Tulin left and then Colonel Nicholson was there. Severely injures the Sergeant Major, the CO, I believe. Then Lieutenant Colonel Smith survived without injury, but still a moment that just told you that there was no control in Fallujah, right? So I think that was another thing that indicated that you have no other options but to you have to go back in there to go and take the rest of the city. So so at that point, we're approaching the end of the deployment. We're starting to do all the things to get yourself out of there, right? And I believe it was Delta Company's second tracks that came in to replace us. And as they're coming in, John Medeiros was a company commander, right? Willie Moe was his XO, right? Then Lieutenant Willie Moore. And I remember the look. Yes, I remember the look on Willie Moore's face the night we came back in from that. The day we lost Lance Puckett, Corporal Mellowatt, Corporal Saltow. On that day was the day that we'd come back in, and it was a long night. And Willie Moore was there in the CP, and the look on his face, realizing that, okay, no, we're still in a very active fight in and around the city, and so I think that's when it really hit him that, wow, this is still very, very active. And so we did our turnover. We ripped. We left on 6 October. When we left, and we ripped out, and Delta Company second tracks had to fight at that point. So, yeah.
Man, I really appreciate you taking the time to go through this. I just got one question for you. So Phantom Fury kicks off November 7th. What were your thoughts? I mean, you've been home, you've been stateside now 60 days.
Yeah.
If
barely.
that, right? And what are some of the thoughts that you have going on as Phantom Fury is kicking off?
So we knew all the shaping operations were going on as we were leaving.
Right.
And those shaping operations got more intensified as we were leaving. The air, ground, all those things. So by the time we got back, and leaving on the 6th of October, by the time we got back to CONUS, somewhere around the 9th or 10th, thereabouts, it was all about just getting folks on leave, getting back. So we got our way back. We kind of were another week's worth of administrative things.
So it was less than 30 days from when you guys.
Yeah, less than 30 days. Yeah,
okay.
By the time we got back home, right? So get everybody sorted out, and of course, figuring out again what would be required in terms of getting folks what they needed and those kind of things. We had to think through memorial services, right? We had to think through psychological services for some folks that we knew had some serious issues. We had, I remember we had about 4 Marines that were broken. I mean, they weren't physically broken, but they had significant shifts in their entire disposition from the time we left to the time when they got back home. And we knew there'd be some problems with those guys. And so we immediately focused on those guys. But then we had to really take care of our injured folks that we had that were already, some were back in the States, some were still in transit, right? Some folks, we just had folks in different places. So that took the better part of all November. And then we heard that it already kicked off. And so at least for me, my thoughts were immediate with John Medeiros, right?
Yeah.
In terms of, okay, so man, what, just hoping that, the turnover that we gave was good, was adequate, that they needed to get through it, that they were ready to roll, right? And so we watched at least what we could. Of course, once you're out of it, you don't have all the granularity you had before.
Yeah.
But you knew enough to watch the casualty numbers come back, and not even 30 days into it, they had their first casualties, injuries. I think they had 1 KA, but by day 30 they had their first KA, somewhere in there. And so it was you just knew that going back in after, despite the efforts to try to contain and impose costs in and around the city, you knew that they still had capability inside that had to be dealt with. And so your thought just went to, man, hope not only the Amtrak company but the entire everybody. Entire regiment and everything else that came out there.
Yeah.
But at that point also, I knew they applied much more combat power as well, right? You had a tank battalion that came up there, right, from the Army. You had other, more Marine Corps.
All the enablers.
All the enablers.
Well, they
right?
burned up the city.
Oh, yeah. So all that had to come in there, right? You had all kinds of different types of ODA type soft capabilities that came in there. Yeah. I remember quick funny story. I remember toward just before we were leaving, as we were doing some of our last patrols, right in front of our company, our cans where we were situated. There was about 4 or 5 Humvees were parked there and sitting there for a while. It's like 2:00 in the morning, and so I'm walking up and I'm like, well, that's weird. None of our patrols should be going out. So, badass captain, I'm walking up like, why, who the hell are these guys? Why are they sitting in front of our vehicles, right in front of our CP? And so I go up there and I snatch the door open it, and then there's a dude sitting there with a baseball cap, right, with a full beard, right, and he's kind of sitting there with a big ass dip in, and kind of slowly looks over at me like, can I help you, right? And I was like, no. close the door, right? And and you could tell those dudes were everywhere, just doing all kinds of stuff, and so you knew that there was a whole another fight that was going on in the background, right? That a lot of us just didn't even understand, right? So I definitely. So I got very curious, years later, like just reading everything I could get my hands on in terms of what was happening, right? I still look at that stuff, and it's I think the thing that jumped out to me with our so we had our company reunion, Alpha Company Third Tracks, we had a reunion in Texas back in April, and I talked about before we got started, and after just 2 days with everybody just back, we had 90 Marines show up there, 90 folks out of the 200 and some odd we took over with us. That's almost good, not quite 50%, but close. And what was clear to me was we all had our slice of what happened, right? Every single day of that thing. Everybody had their own kind of what you saw in there, right? And so, one of the coordinators at Simplify America's Fund, he retired sergeant major, name escapes me right now, Billy, I think his first name is, but he told me, he's like, before you leave, you need to make sure you tell you explain to every Marine that's here what happened, right? Like why you were where you were, just from your perspective then, right? Just because they're not going to understand it, right? And or at least not have the full picture, right? Everyone has a slice, and that's exactly what it was. When I explained kind of what I knew of it, I mean, you just saw the light bulb coming on in terms of, holy shit.
Yeah.
Okay, now that makes fucking sense, right? Because for a lot of them, it just didn't. The question was, why was even Ms. Wood, right? I remember she asked me a few times. She's like, so why was my son there, right? What? Why did you have to be where you were, right? And having just to answer that question, at least being able to provide some context. Again, no answer is going to be acceptable, right? No, at least satisfying, but at least add context to what happened and why you were where you were and what happened there. That was, I think that helped all of them. It helped me. It helped. I mean, it was really just a good way to end it out there. So that's good.
Yeah, well, this is a good way to end this, man. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Scuttlebutt is a production of the Marine Corps Association. You have heard the voices or contributions from Major Vic Rubel, USMC retired, Nancy Litchman, William Truding, and our guest. Ty Frazier is the editor, sound engineer, and technical producer. The Marine Corps Association is not an agency of the U.S. government. The opinions expressed in this episode are the personal views of the participants and do not reflect the official position of the United States Marine Corps, the Department of Defense, or the Marine Corps Association.